How can I trust my teenager when they're always lying to me? Have you been in that spot? By the end of this video, you're going to have some hope, along with an understanding of a model that is going to help turn things around for you and your teenager. Here's the quick introduction. They want trust. You want trustworthiness. Do you hear me? Now this gets back to the basic model that I think every parent needs to understand about control and maturity. Let's go there. Let's talk about how control and maturity are related. So in this graph, you'll see that we've got maturity down there on the bottom, meaning how grown up you are. There's some other elements of maturity that we'll get to in just a minute. Over on the vertical axis, you see control. And control means control over your own life. Control goes from 0 control down there at the bottom to 100% control up here on the top. Now, I told you there's different ways to measure maturity, but let's start with age. As we put birth over there on the left-hand side of the scale, and adulthood over here. Now, how much control do you have over your own life at birth? Hardly any, right? It's pretty close to 0. How much control do you have as an adult? Now, before you get into all of the disclaimers, what do you think teenagers tell me when I ask them how much control do the adults have? Oh, 100%. They put it way up here. If we graph a line between birth and adulthood, we can see that control starts out really low and that it increases as you gain maturity until it's up here near 100%. The part of the control under the line down here is the part you get for yourself. The part over the line is the control others take in your life. We can also refer to that as external control or internal control, meaning how much do I need people or things in my life to control me versus how much can I control myself? Now, age is only one of the ways that we can talk about maturity. But we all know adults who are pretty immature. And we all know young children who can be quite mature for their age. So what do we mean when we say someone's being immature or mature? Let's break that graph down into these 3 chunks. And I've very simply labeled them for you: stage 1, stage 2, and stage 3. Let's talk about stage 1 first. Stage 1 is the least mature of these 3 stages, and it's characterized by things like selfishness, okay? Being very self-centered and egocentric. At stage 1, there's usually a lot of noise, fighting, yelling, screaming, manipulating, being very demanding or unwilling to cooperate. Is this sounding familiar? And lying, by the way, which brought us to this video in the first place. Stage 1, do you see how selfish and demanding that can possibly be? Now, this is typical of very immature 2-year-olds. Have you ever known a 2-year-old to throw a tantrum? Yeah, they really rock at it. But what about a 17-year-old? What about a 13-year-old? If they are throwing tantrums or being demanding or manipulative, they are on stage 1 as well. So it's about stage, not age. Keep that in mind for just a moment. I know that you're probably trying to take some notes and remember what we talked about here. Look, don't worry about that. I've put this all together for you in a nice, clean PDF that's color-coded and everything. Just go to drpauljenkins.com/stages. And you'll get a copy of this model in full color. Let's take a look at what stage 2 looks like. At stage 2, we stop fighting and start cooperating. If I were to write a word on that dividing line between stage 1 and stage 2, it would be cooperation. This is basically how you can tell if your teenager or your younger child is on stage 1 or 2. If they're on stage 1, they're not cooperating with you. If they're on stage 2, they will cooperate, even if they're not happy about it. Okay, so this is characterized by wanting to keep the peace, by negotiating with you and being willing to work out some kind of a win-win proposition. You get a very different feel at stage 2. Now look what's happening to the control line. They get to have more control over their own life. They get to have more say when they move to stage 2. So you can see the internal control is increasing and the external control is decreasing. Earlier when I said, that part under the line is internal control, the part over the line is external control, guess which part you get to take as a parent? That's right. You're the ones who get to step up and take more control if your kids are being less mature. Now this is important because there's a lineup for the control over your child's life. First in line for the control is them. They get first crack at it, to the extent that they're mature enough to take it. If they're not that mature and they can't take the control, you're next in line. Because guess who's third? The state. Yeah, the police, the Division of Child and Family Services, Youth Corrections. Someone has to be in control of your teenager. Now, my strong preference is that we put your teenager in control of their own life. But if they're not mature enough to do that, I want you next. Because as much as I love the state doesn't love your child, right? So we want that control to stay as close to home as possible. That's why it's so important to understand this dynamic. Stage 3 is the most mature of these 3 stages, and it's characterized by being committed and dedicated to moral principles and reasoning. Ethics and values are important now. Morals. At stage 3, we do the right things for the right reasons. Stage 3 is about empathy and service and compassion. See, this is a much higher level of moral development. And when we reach that level of development or maturity, we get to have more control over our own life. That is true for your kids too. The question that we started out with, how can I trust my teenager when they're always lying to me? Do you see why now? When your kids get to stage 3 over here, you will trust them because they're showing you the kind of maturity that earns your trust. If they're lying to you, that's down on stage 1. And you can't trust them to take appropriate control over their life because they're demonstrating that they're not mature enough to do that. This is the color version of the model that I promised to send you. drpauljenkins.com/stages, and I'll put a PDF copy of this right in your hands so that you can print it out, put it in your home somewhere. It's not your job to trust your teenager. It's your job to love them. No matter what, and even if they're untrustworthy, even if they're on stage 1, when they achieve a level of maturity and moral development that we've described here with stage 3, you will trust them. When they're on stage 3, think about it. They want trust. You want trustworthiness. So the more they're willing to step up and take moral responsibility for their life, the more they will get to have trust. Control over your own life is also known as freedom, but freedom is not free. It comes at the cost of moral development and solid principle-based decision making. That's why it's important for parents and kids to understand this model, so that we can work better together to move toward higher levels of moral development and maturity.